Welcome to JMW's Inside Man YouTube channel. My guest is Lucy Marlowe. Lucy is a senior associate solicitor within JMW's intellectual property department. So Lucy, we had all the jubilations of the Lionesses last year and all that they achieved. And now we're going into the Women's World Cup. But we discovered that last year there was a dispute around advertising. What happened?
So this was a piece of litigation involving Puma's advertisements at the Wembley Park tube station back at the UEFA Women's Football Championships in 2022. And what happened was Puma had secured advertising space for around the time of the final. And these ads included photographs of female players that were sponsored by Puma, wearing Puma's branded clothing. And there were some taglines such as faster football and our time. But at that point, Puma were not the official sponsors of the Women's UEFA Football Championships. And TfL, who's responsible for advertising in and around the tube stations, received a request that they say was from UEFA and the FA, requiring them to take down the ads on the basis that they amounted to passing off and ambush marketing.
And so what happened next then, Lucy?
So what happened next was that TfL responded to the takedown request and took down the ads in question. Puma obviously were aggrieved by that and considered it to be an unjustified threat of passing off. So that when they then wrote to the UEFA and the FA complaining about the request that they'd made, UEFA and the FA denied that they'd actually made the request. So ultimately what that meant was Puma brought an application in the Intellectual Property Enterprise Court claiming Norwich pharmacal relief, so requiring that TfL disclose the evidence showing who had actually made these complaints.
It all sounds very complicated, Lucy, and all Puma wanted to do was to advertise. Do they have any recourse now? Is there anything that they can do about this?
So, well, first of all, the order that was requested was granted by the court. So Puma was considered to have met the conditions for Norwich pharmacal relief. And there was a case that Puma had been threatened with passing off. So really now it's quite interesting to see whether or not Puma decides to sue the FA and or UEFA, claiming that it had made an unjustified threat of passing off and ambush marketing. Also, what's interesting here is there may also have been some local laws that were in force at that time that restrict advertising around the stadiums where massive events are taking place. So, for example, at the current World Cup that's taking place in New Zealand, there is a piece of legislation, the Major Events Management Act 2007, which prohibits advertising around certain venues at certain times. So it will just be interesting to see whether or not Puma decides to take action and really challenge the point of whether or not it amounts to passing off. Had they made a representation that caused the public to think that it was associated with that particular event when in fact it wasn't an official sponsor? So yeah, it's an interesting space to watch.
And I know that you and the intellectual property law team work with lots of different brands, including sports brands. How can you and the team help businesses?
Well, first of all, what this case shows is that if you are thinking of advertising around the location of a major event, it's important that you seek legal advice, and we can help with that. But also, it's not just the location of that particular advertisement, it's also the content. And it may be the case that that content could be unlawful, amount to ambush marketing. So again, it's important that legal opinions sought as to whether or not you're on the right side of the law. Couple of like key pointers to take away is that if you are trying to gain an association with a sporting event, you need to be careful not to use official trademarks. Don't go for risky themes. So, for example, with the current World Cup, don't go for World Cup Australia, New Zealand. Don't repost official content, because all of those things are likely to be considered as, gaining an association with the events, and it may be unlawful. So it's important to take legal advice.
Lucy, thank you very much for your insight. And if you'd like to contact Lucy and the intellectual property team here at JMW Solicitors, you can email insideman@jmw.co.uk or call 0161 82 81 999. Please also subscribe to the JMW Inside Man YouTube channel for the latest legal news, hints and tips. I'm Dominic Walker, JMW's Inside Man.